And welcome back. This is Mike from Digital Offensive, and you're watching my path to OSCP. Today we're going to talk about Real. Real is one of the Hack the Box challenges that has just been retired, and it's one of the cooler ones out there. It's a Windows machine that allows you to experiment with AD, such functionalities of access control lists, access control entities or entries, that allow you to manipulate poor permissions to gain your administrator level access to grab the final flag as the root/administrator user. Along the path, we're going to experience some new tools that we have not seen yet in Hack the Box. One of these tools is Bloodhound. This is a tool that allows you to quickly review access control lists in an Active Directory environment, as well as PowerView, which is a PowerShell script that allows you to collect this data and to make some changes within the Active Directory environments. These tools were released by a group. One of the members of the group is Waldo, WALD0. He has a lot of great information on his website, and I'll link that down in the description below as we go through this write-up some more, so you can learn some additional information. You'll see me referencing his website as we go through this write-up. So I can explain to you the importance of what we're seeing in the write-up, so you understand why this attack works. I had the honor a couple years back to take a class with Waldo when he at Black Hat. I took my Red Team class with them, and all through the class we learned some great PowerShell techniques to gain information from a domain and to actually go from user to domain admin. Now, during that class, it was a huge mindset change from what I was used to. I came from a background of pen testing, applications, network environments, things like that, where we're throwing attacks and different vulnerabilities at services and things like that, and we're pretty noisy in that process. And then moving to a Red Team environment where you're more stealthy, you're quiet, you're planning your attacks, and really you're not using a lot of exploits. You're using more misconfigurations within the environment. You're relying on network admins, system admins, users to be able to elevate your privileges to get to the next level. And this box basically takes a little bit of both worlds. You get some of the pen testing experience through client-side attack vectors that we're going to experience in this box, which I believe this might be one of the first boxes I've seen in Hack the Box. I may be wrong on this, where they're actually using a client-side attack to gain your initial foothold. So enough of me chit-chatting. Let's jump into this tutorial. You're going to see a lot of cool things in this. So let's jump over to the screen here. So what I have over here, whenever I do any of these tutorials or anytime I'm doing any pen testing out there, red teaming, I always take great notes. Without notes, you won't remember what you did. Real came out almost 2 months ago, maybe a little bit more. When it first came out, everyone's hammering, the box was going up and down, and you were losing some of your work. So what do you need to do? You need to take good notes. You're going to do your enumeration. You're going to throw those enumeration notes into your text file, your OneNote, your whatever tool you're using. I'm just using simple notepad files here, quickly jotting down my notes as I go. So when I did my initial enumeration scans of Real, it came back with a couple of interesting ports. I have port 22, all right, possibly SSH running on the box. I know it's a Windows box, so be interested to see what's there. I have an anonymous FTP running, which is awesome. What may be in that directory? What can I download in that directory? Is that service vulnerable? Let's find out. And I also have port 25 open, which most of us will realize is a mail port. And this is pretty cool because this is going to be an attack vector that actually allows us to take advantage of this box. And it's not that the service itself is vulnerable, we're going to find out, but we're going to find out that it's a client-side based attack where we're sending a malicious file to an end user, almost like a phishing attack. And we're getting that end user to execute our code, which is giving our initial foothold to this box. So let's get into this. So from our FTP prompt, we're going to do FTP real.htb. I have a tendency to always edit my /etc host file and to map the IP to the name of the box. This is helpful for several reasons. One, the human mind remembers names better than numbers. So me typing real.htb instead of 10.10.10.77, which I believe is Real's IP, I'm able to just type in a name and quickly get there. But it's also helpful in some of the Active Directory and other enumeration steps where you need the name of the host. So I like to put that in there. So we're going to FTP over to Real, and we're going to type in anonymous. We'll type in any password you feel like because it's anonymous access. It really doesn't need it. And we're logged in. So here we're going to do ls. We're going to see that we have a documents directory. So let's cd into documents. And ls-dir, whatever. I'm really familiar with Linux. I like using it more than Windows, so I have a tendency to type Linux commands. Both of them work, as you can see. In here, you got 3 files. Now, if you don't have Word on your machine, it's a little frustrating. These 2 files are Word files, and there's some interesting data in these files. It's going to give you some hints about future steps. Inside the app blocker, it's telling you what can and can't run. So you're going to find out that on Real, you're not going to be able to run scripts, exes, JavaScript, PS, BAT, CMD files, and so on. It's locked down to avoid code execution, but we can still bypass it, right? We see that a lot in some of the other Hack the Box challenges where we can't execute our PowerShell scripts, but then when we use a script bypass or calling PowerShell with the command right at the command line, we're able to circumvent some control. So we can try some of these vectors as we're going through this. The readme.txt you're going to find in there, there's going to be some directions in there. That's going to say, please email me any RTF format procedures I'll review and convert. So basically, at first I was thinking maybe we have to send an RTF file, but it really says RTF format procedures. So inside that, we know we can basically be sending them a file attachment, and they're going to be reading that file attachment. So where can we go with that, right? So we know we have a mail server, so we have a way to send a file. We know we can send a file, and they're going to somehow review that file, so there's some type of client on the other side that's actually doing work. How do we go about exploiting it? So if you jump on Google, you do some searching for attack vectors, you will stumble upon CVE 2017-0199, Microsoft Office Word malicious HCA execution. So basically, we're going to exploit the Microsoft Word that's running on the machine. And another way for you to think that is Microsoft Word 2 is the file attachments, right? docx is a Microsoft Word file. And we know that they're looking for an RTF format procedures document that they're going to review and convert. So we know if we send a document, we know they have Word running on their machine, or somehow they got Word documents that they've executed in the past and saved down the FTP drive. So we're able to look at using this vulnerability to take to attack this box. So from here, let's exit out of this and let's jump over to Metasploit. Now, there's other tools out there that's going to allow you to build your payload. For this tutorial, I'm just using Metasploit. Simple, quick, simple. Some caveats with using Metasploit you're going to see as we go through this. Biggest thing to remember when using any tools, make sure you're reading the directions and you understand the error messages. Otherwise, you're going to sit here frustrated for a long period of time. So let's jump over to Metasploit. I use the -q command so we don't get all that pretty output. It loads quicker, or at least it should load quicker now that I say that. So you can see we don't have the crazy Metasploit output right there. We just get a straight prompt. So we're going to make some settings here. We're going to use this exploit. So exploit is going to be the Windows file format Office Word HCA. And here we're going to do show options. And you can see we have a couple of files we can change. So set file name. You don't have to change this. I like to change this. If you're going to do a real attack, you're not going to leave it called msf.doc. People are going to be like, what the heck are you talking about? So like if we call it finance, financial, HR, all these similar attack vectors you see, all these spammers using out there, all these script kiddies using. You're going to choose a name that's going to get your victim to jump on it. So let's keep it semi-real. Let's call it finance.doc, right? From here, we're going to set our SRV host. Oops, helps if I type the word set. That's going to be our IP 10.10.14.7. That's me. Set my L host 10.10.14.7. Now this is where we're going to run into a problem most likely, and I've noticed this several times. I'm not 100% sure why this happens, but let's see if it happens again. I'll show it to you. So we're going to type exploit. It's going to launch our server with our exploit, right? Here's our problem. Start a reverse TCP handler on 192.168.1.6. If you understand the network of Hack the Box, you're going to notice that that is not the 10 address that is my tunnel IP within the Hack the Box environment. That's actually my IP address of my actual VM on my home network here. So when this happens, we got to stop it and we got to reset the L host. Now why? I don't know. Googling it, I've seen it happen multiple times from other people, and basically you have to reset that. Now the other caveat here is, since we already ran it once and we didn't fully exit out of Metasploit, you're going to get another error, and the error you're going to get here is going to be that the URI path of default.hta already exists. So we're going to change our URI path as well. So we're just going to call it whatever we want. Let's call it test.hta. Right? So we set our URI path. We're going to type in exploit again. And this time, lo and behold, it works. Right? So our reverse TCP handler is listing on the correct IP on port 4444. And we can always change our ports in the past, right? So if we have a firewall that's very restrictive, we can use common ports such as 80, 443, things like that to help circumvent other controls that companies put in place. Now that it's listening, we want to actually execute the code and send the payload out to the user. To do this, I used Mutt. Mutt is a command line, kind of like console-based email client that runs on Linux. You can use other mail clients. You can Thunderbird or whatever you decide to use off of Kali to do this as well. I found this was simple. I can script it, and it works. For us to actually get the mail to send, we need to define the mail server in our settings. So inside MuttRC, we would add the string set SMTP URL equals SMTP : / the IP address of real and the port of real, and then save that file. Once we save that file, we can then come over here, copy our mail command, and what we're going to do here is we're going to paste our mail command in, and you're going to see it's going to auto populate all the fields for us. So we have two guests at real.htb, subject is doc. This is where we can type our body, so we can say hello, escape, shift C, and now we can send our file, right? Now, as that's sending over, it takes a few moments. Let me discuss how I determine the user guest to use in this attack, right? So, using SDP enumeration tool, we're able to define a user list. So let's take a look at that. So to find the user guest, right? SMTP user-enum is a Kali-based tool. It comes on the box. It's actually developed by Pentest Monkey, and it allows you to enumerate the SMTP users. So in this case, we're using SMTP user-enum-u guest. So the lowercase u means just look for this one user. The -t is this host, real.htb, and we're going to be looking on the domain HTB, and we're going to use the method of receipt. So if we hit enter here, we get one result back. Now what I noticed here is we can change guest to anything, and it works. I believe what we're seeing happen here is I think they have all these email addresses just automatically allowed in, and they all probably get a default inbox of that one user. So basically, it allows any inbound email goes to that one user and it's auto executed. In a real world environment, that may or may not happen depending on the email server settings. So you may need a larger word list to work with to do that. And if you need to use a larger word list to do that, all we would do here is change the lowercase u to capital U, provide the list of email addresses, and then that can go through the whole list, checking them all. Same thing with our hosts. If we wanted to enumerate multiple hosts for this enumeration process, we can have a capital T there and a list of hosts in a file and basically send it out. So you can see that when you sent the email to the user guest, it was executed. We have one session available to us. So if we do sessions-I to interact with that session, it's going to be session 1 because we only have one session running. We're going to do show. I'm a user called Nico. So if we do CD okay, so on this box there's a bunch of users, right? We see our user Nico here. Let's see if this happens to be the user account we want to hack. So we CD the desktop. We do a DIR right here. Whoop. CD Nico first because we have to go in his directory. Desktop. DIR. All right, so we have user.txt. So we type user.txt, more, whatever you feel like doing. And we get our user flag. So right now we've got our user flag. Now, looking in this folder, there's something else that's very interesting, right? We see cred.xml. So if we do more cred.xml, look in this file, system management, PS credential, system object, system management automation, PS credentials. Username is HTB Tom, so it's a domain user Tom on the HTB domain, and this is his password that's encrypted. So to me, the first couple things that threw me right here is the fact that it says PowerShell, PS credential. I knew that somehow I had to use PowerShell to decrypt this, right? Up to this point, I really don't know much else about this, so I got to figure out where I'm going to go with this. So doing some Googling, I found this great article on this setting here. So I'll put this down in my in the video description below. But basically, this guy talks about how to decrypt PowerShell secure strings. Because in PowerShell, this is getting put into a secure string, and that's what you're seeing here. Now, the catch here is you can't copy this to your local desktop and run PowerShell, because the secure string is actually using the host name of the machine as part of the encryption algorithm, or part of the value for the encryption. So unless you rename your host to real.htb, you're not going to get the same output. So the easiest way to do it is use PowerShell. So here I have the PowerShell command I use. PowerShell credentials equals import. So we're going to import the cred.xml. Right, so import CLI XML, the path to that file, which is cred.xml. Credentials get network credentials, so we're going to get that object, and then we're going to output it. Go back and just verify your notes, right? So we copy it, we put it in there, we get the fancy output, and the username is Tom, password it's magic with 3 exclamation marks, right? So where do we go now? How do we use the user Tom? So the user Tom, let's exit out. Actually, we'll leave this open just in case. And we're going to open a new terminal. So we know there's SSH running on that box. So we do SSH real.htb. Oops. Let's try it again. We'll put a user in front of this of Tom. And now we're going to paste Tom's password in here that we just decrypted. And now you can see we're logged in as Tom. So what can we do as Tom? As Tom, the file administrator, can we get the file we need, right? So let's do CD desktop. We see there's a folder called AD audit, but there's no root.txt in here. And CD in this AD audit folder. All right, so inside this AD audit folder, we have Bloodhound and note.txt. For those who don't know what Bloodhound is, I suggest you look into it. If you ever heard the 70 degrees of separation, Bloodhound is like that for domain admin. It finds the fastest path to domain admin or the fastest path to the abuse of ACEs and ACLs within Active Directory. It ties users, domains, and groups like that and looks through how you can modify the ACLs and ACEs, the DACLs, to gain access to other accounts, how you can escalate your privilege from a user to an admin, domain admin, a backup admin, something else with higher level privileges. When I first took that Red Team class I mentioned earlier, Bloodhound was not out yet. At the end of the class, the end part of Blackout, when they're doing their talks, the team released Bloodhound, and I sat there and was like, seriously? All this time we did all this work in class, all this hard steps we went through, and then also you release this tool that makes it 100 times easier. But still, it's still good to learn the manual process to do it, because that helps you in case you can't have tools like Bloodhound. If there's some type of signature or something else that detects it. So let's review the notes file. Remember how I just said how Bloodhound helps you find your path to domain admin? Inside the notes, surprisingly, no AD attack path from user to domain admin using default short path query. Bloodhound is awesome. It has a lot of queries already built in to make your process much faster, give you some idea how to write query strings, things like that. So using the built-in queries, it wasn't able to find the shortest path to domain admin. There wasn't one that existed. Maybe we should rerun cyber query against other groups we've created. So we know we want to kind of poke at groups, right? We want to see what groups have what permissions, who has permissions in these groups, how those users tie to other users. Basically, we're going to start off with a group in the middle. We're going to branch out to see these paths and figure out which path we need to travel to basically get from our user, Tom, to some form of admin that can get into the backup. Some form of admin that can get to the root.txt file. So, I have Bloodhound already loaded. So let's bring Bloodhound up. And actually, I don't have Bloodhound loaded right now. I'll have to re-execute it. But while we're on this topic here, if we look over here, I'll put this down in the description too. Waldo.com. He is one of the creators of Bloodhound, along with Harmjoy and Lee Christensen. You'll see a lot of great information in here. And what we're looking at here is ACL abuse within Active Directory, right? So Bloodhound 1.3, the ACL attack path updates. So it gives you a brief introduction what Bloodhound is, what ACL paths are, some of the authors and the people that worked on this. Explains to you what ACLs are. But the most interesting part down here and what we're going to see inside of Bloodhound and what's going to help us get to where we need to be is the abusable access control entries. So some of the most common ones is forced change password, the ability to change the target user's password without knowing the current value. Think about this. If you're able to log in and change someone's password without knowing that password, wouldn't that be great? Can we do that? Is that bad permission set somewhere with this access control entry that we can take this and abuse that to do that? Add members. Can we add members to groups? Can we take Tom that we have access to and add him into an admin group somehow? Generic all. Full object control, including the ability to add other principals to a group, change a user's password without knowing its current value, register an SPM with the user object, etc. And so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different ones here. The other one that we will be looking at today is the write DACL. The ability to write a new access control entry to the target object DACL. For example, an attacker may write a new ACE to the target object DACL, giving the attacker full control of the target object abused with. So, can we basically create a new access control for an existing object, giving the other person full control of that to be able to abuse that? And let's find out if we can. So we're going to launch Bloodhound. I already installed it. If you haven't installed it yet, you're going to need to install Neo4j and you're going to need to install Bloodhound. Once you install, both of them can be installed via apt-get install. Once installed, you want to start Neo4j first. And when you first start Neo4j, you want to type in Neo4j console. That's going to launch Neo4j in the background. Then you'll be able to type in Bloodhound, and Bloodhound's going to launch just like this. When you first launch Bloodhound, there's going to be no data in the database. And if you come over here, you can see database. And you can see my database is already populated. You can see that I'm connected to the Neo4j already. To import your data, the first time you can do upload data over here and import your data into the system. Now, where do we get this data from? Well, back over here, right? We're in that order directory, right? We cd into Bloodhound. And we see in here there's ingesters. And we have our PowerView PS1, which we can play with later. All right. So in here, we have our ACLs.csv file. This is our data file. This is what has been executed of all our directory paths within AD already for us. We could use the tools within here, the PowerView tool and other tools to actually create the ingesters again, but we already have the data, so we can download the ACLs.csv. The fact that we have the fact that we have a shell with Metasploit array, we can use the download, simply download this file. So we downloaded this file to our local machine using the built-in download. If you didn't want to use the built-in download, you can try FTP. You can PowerShell the file out. The fact that we have the capability within the Metasploit shell already, it made life 100 times easier. So we just type in download in the file path. We download the file to our local machine, and then we import it into Bloodhound. So the file is now imported into our Bloodhound. And actually, I have two Bloodhounds running. All right. So let me jump back over this one first, and I'll come back over. So in here, you can see we have our data loaded. We come over queries. These are the built-in queries that they were talking about. So what they did here is they did find shortest path to domain admins. And when they ran this, there really was no path that we can go from Tom to domain administrator. It's just a generic ACL. We don't have access to the local system, and we couldn't get to the domain admins group. So it says to look at other domains, other groups, right? So if we start looking at groups, let's type in administrators. That's actually the user. So you can see the difference between user and administrator. Users and groups. Groups have this yellow with 3 people in it. So this is a group. We can click on this group, and then we can check out some of the paths. So explicit object control. Explicit object controls, and we can make this a little more viewable. So enterprise admins has some paths, but this path is going in. All these paths are going back to the administrators group. You have owns, right DACL, and then same thing down here for domain admins. They all go back to the administrator group. So let's see what other groups we have. So we've just met 2 other groups. We have enterprise administrators and we have domain admins. We already knew we don't have a path with domain admins. So we look at enterprise admins. We have administrators, domain admins, and you can drag this around all you want to see. So local system. So once again, we don't have any paths here we can look at. And we continue going through the groups, right? Eventually, we're going to stumble upon domain admins, and we're going to look into domain admins. So the one that jumps out right away at me, right, is right DACL. So Claire here has the ability to write a DACL with backup administrators. So we don't have access to Claire yet, but how can we gain access to Claire, knowing that Claire can eventually get us access to backup admins? So let's look at Claire. So we click on Claire, and basically all I'm doing is going to the inbound object controls, because we want to see all the inbounds. We can do it the same way, outbounds, things like that. These are telling me which way the paths are going, so I can easily figure out my attack paths. And I am definitely no pro at Bloodhound. I got to use a little bit in class. I'm getting to play with it in real. We started using it a lot more in our assessments, but in general, this is still fairly new to me. So here we can see an inbound object control. So Tom and Claire have a path together. So you can write owner and owns. So how do we modify this to take advantage of this path? Now, there's a way to do a power review. As I said, I have a lot of problems in this module to get power review to work. I went a little bit more old school and I used DACLs to do this next step. So one of my plans is once IPSEC releases his video, I'm going to see how he did, if he used Power Review or not. Try to understand where I had my problems with Power Review getting it to work. I've got it to work outside of real, in the real world environment, and I don't know if maybe there's something inside of real that was flagging me. Maybe I was typing something wrong. Maybe it was an older version. There could have been a number of reasons why I was hitting roadblocks. It was just getting frustrating, so I resolved it back to DACLs. And the DACLs made it much easier. So, knowing that we have Claire and we can go to Tom, let's jump back over here and see what we can do, right? Now, I'm just going to CD out a little bit so I get a little more screen area to work with. And let's jump back over. We're going to jump back over to our notes, right? And that's why we take notes. Now, to learn more about DACLs and how to abuse these ACLs and ACEs with Active Directory paths, you may want to jump over to this website, ss64.com/nt DSACLS, right? I call them DACLs. It just something that how I pronounce it. I don't know if that's how others pronounce it, but it's dsacls.html. And it's going to give you an understanding of how to use these commands. So basically, the first command we're going to run is we're going to say Claire, who's a user on the domain HTB. We're going to take ownership. And once we take ownership, we're going to grant that ownership to Tom with full control. We're going to grant that ownership to Tom, and we're going to basically grant Tom the ability to reset Claire's password. Copy. Alright, it's all done. It's completed. Now we'll use the next command here, where we're going to grant this asset again and let that run. Alright, that's done. And then we'll pass the last one where we're going to grant Tom the ability to change Claire's password. Alright, and that's done. Now, if all those commands worked, we should now be able to change Claire's password. And we're going to use PowerShell to do that, because we also have to set it into a secure string. So basically, we're saying use PowerShell, set AD account password. New password, convert to secure string, password 1. So we're converting the password 1 into a secure string, and then we're going to put that into Claire. So next thing we should be able to do is we should be able to log in as Claire using password 1 if everything worked properly. So let's exit here. I'm going to hit up. I'm going to type in Claire. I'm going to type in password 1. Oh, sorry, it's password 1 exclamation mark. And now we're logged in as Claire. So we were able to abuse the access control list, the access control entries, to basically take ownership or grant Tom ownership of Claire, and grant Tom the ability to change Claire's password. And then we basically changed Claire's password to password 1 exclamation mark. We logged in as Claire. Now, since Claire has access to the backup admins, we're going to now add Tom into that group. So once again, we're going to use PowerShell, and you can be using the PowerView and other scripts that are on that machine to do that. As I said, I found it's easier to just go more of a manual approach to this and get it to work with no problem. So PowerShell, add to the group member, identify backup admins, add Tom to that group. All right, so we ran that command. Now we should be able to exit from here. And someone else also asked, let's just see something. Yeah, so I'm going to exit out. We're going to log back in as Tom. Now Tom should be a member of this group. Let's see here. So what we're going to do here, we want to type in Tom's password, which it's magic. Once again, it's nice if you store all your notes, you can quickly scroll through, copy, paste, log back in, net user Tom. All right. You can see now we're a member of the backup admins. Now the backup admins will have access to the administrator directory. So we do cd ... cd to administrator, cd desktop. Now here's another cool thing here, right? While Tom has access to the backup administrators, he doesn't yet have access to root.txt. So the next step here is, let's look into the cd backup. Since we're a backup administrator, let's look at the backup scripts. And what's in here, right? So there's a bunch of scripts in here. So let's take a look at some of these scripts. So we do more backup. And let's look at this. Interesting. All right. So nothing crazy. More backup. Let's look at backup script. So admin password. All right, correct me if you can. So we know we have the admin password now. So using the admin password, we can exit out. And now we're going to log in as administrator. And we're going to use that password. And now we're logged in as the administrator. And now we can access this file. So a lot of detail in this video, a lot of information around using Bloodhound. It was a great tool to use in this scenario. We have used it recently in a couple of our other engagements at my full-time job. We're starting to learn it more, understand it more. It's a great tool to still have to see where there might be some permissioning errors and ways you can abuse that. The box altogether was pretty enjoyable. Got to play a lot with PowerShell, learning how to use PowerShell to get passwords and to use it to set passwords in secure string formats. Some areas I've not really got to use before in the past, and some are testing, so it's a lot of fun to do that. So basically here we've gone through client-side attacks, some Active Directory enumeration / attacks. You didn't really get the data yourself, but you could if you wanted to. But it's still great to see a little bit of AD play come into these environments now. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more with that lately, as we're starting to see some more Windows boxes come onto the network. And actually, there's a whole, in Hack the Box now, there's actually a whole AD environment that costs extra to do, but you get to actually try out some of these attack vectors in more detail. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. Make sure you like these videos. I make these videos for you. It helps me learn, but it also helps you learn. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel, share it out to other people. It's people like you watching these videos that keep me motivated to create these videos. If you like the content, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel. As always, have a good day, and look forward to seeing you on my next video.